Has the motion be agreed to?
Mr Speaker.
Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise and support the second reading of the Hamilton City Council Parana Park Vesting Bill 2010, and may I congratulate the member who's just resumed his seat on correctly anticipating that in fact there will be support from this side of the House, from Labor, on this bill. So well anticipated. Could be the pinnacle of his career, but great anticipation. Look, I also want to congratulate David Bennett, the MP in whose name this bill comes forward. It may well be the pinnacle of his career to date to have brought this bill forward in sponsoring it. I think the member opposite who did speak before was correct in saying that David Bennett is the sponsor of this bill. Drafted, I would think, by the Hamilton City Council and brought forward in David Bennett's name. So congratulations to David Bennett for doing that. And as I say, he has got a piece. Well, he's getting close to getting a piece of legislation through this House after his 5 years in Parliament. So he really is getting somewhere now. And I think it was also very gracious of him to allow his colleague Tim McIndoe to move the second reading of the speech in his absence. So obviously, it wasn't quite important enough for him to be here for, but nonetheless. Look, Parana Park is a really important asset in our city of Hamilton. It is widely used, and it's used by all manner of people, all age groups. It's been recently used to host the city walks. The Hamilton Half Marathon has its starting place in Parana Park. The Go By Bike Day was another recent event that started in Parana Park. So you can see that it's hosting all modes of transport, and healthy modes at that. It's also annually the place where we hold the very important Anzac Day ceremony and commemoration. And so it hosts very many Hamiltonians and people from the broader Waikato. And I've certainly been to many other events there. I've been to weddings there in Parana Park. One of my favourite events that I've attended is the celebration of May Day in Parana Park. Now, May Day, I don't recall Tim McIndoe being there at the celebration of May Day, but that is, of course, the day on which we celebrate workers' rights right around the world. It's an international day, and it has been recognised by the local unions hosting a family picnic to commemorate May Day and to think about how we are doing in this country on the issue of workers' rights. And of course, on the 1st of May, you might be able to imagine, if people have visited Hamilton, that Parana Park is resplendent in its autumn colours around about then. Still probably warm enough to get out and have a picnic, as they have done on May Day, but looking absolutely a picture, right nestled there beside the Waikato River, and with the autumn leaves, and just quite a stunning environment to be in for such an event. The history of Parana Park is also incredibly interesting, because I think it not only represents the type of history that much of the Waikato has, but in fact much of New Zealand, because the park actually sits on land that is rapatu, confiscated land that was confiscated from Tainui, actually, in the 1960s. And so, in that regard, it is quite similar to large tracts of land in the Waikato. And so this prime piece of land that sat right beside the Waikato River, that had been used for entrance and exit spots for transporting goods up and down the river, was confiscated from Tainui in the 1860s. And then by 1866 it had been granted, quite a quaint word when you think about it, in 1866 it was granted to a man by the name of William Mull. And he was granted not just Parana Park and that area of land, but he was granted 400 acres. And part of that 400 acres is the land that now has become known as Parana Park. I say now become known as Parana Park, but because of the work of the Select Committee, it will now formally be known as Parana Park. So the legislation will in fact reflect for the first time the name that Hamiltonians have known this piece of land for decades. So I want to congratulate the Select Committee on doing that. It may seem like quite a small step. It's certainly not going to...
Isn't that going over the top?
Well, look, it's not going to change the course of history. It's not necessarily going to make anyone's lives better, but hey, we've got a piece of land that we've traditionally known as Parana Park. It's now going to be formally recognised as that in statute. And I think that's, I think, well, look, I don't think we can oppose it on those grounds, Mr Mallard, because really to not recognise it as the name that it's been known by would not be correct, and I don't think the people who I represent would be in favour of that. So the Select Committee did use the opportunity to correct, to make sure that the name is now recognised by statute, and I thank them for that. Since the land was granted to William Moule in 1866, it's changed hands twice, which again just reminds us about the travesty of justice that actually occurred during that period of time when it was taken from its lawful owners quite unlawfully in the 1860s and then sold, I would imagine, for private profit twice before it landed in the very kind hands of George Parr. And George Parr is the man who gifted this piece of land to Hamilton. So he was a very visionary man. He was in his 60s when he made this decision. And I can only imagine the type of man that he would have been. He was a farmer, we know this. He was the son of a former mayor of Hamilton, so he obviously felt strongly about the civic duty. He was very involved in politics. He was involved in liberal politics of the time. And I imagine that while I may differ with George Parr on some of his views on many things, I think there are many things that we have in common. It's clear, for example, that he had a strong love of children, because the very reason that he gifted this land and this very special area to Hamilton was to make sure that the welfare of children in the city was looked after. Because he actually left that to be developed as a playground for children, and he left the building to be developed as a convalescing home for children who were ill. So he clearly had valued children and put children at the heart of his thinking. And Mr Speaker, while I may have differed with him on many other points of view, that is something that I strongly believe in as well. Another thing that I think we may have had in common is that he actually was a visionary when it came to issues about transport. George Parr was a visionary, and he was a train enthusiast. And even back in those days, he recognised, and we're talking about in the 1920s now when I say those days, the 1920s. No, I don't remember them, but even back in the 1920s, George Parr was advocating for a train service between Carfia and Raglan and Hamilton. It is an idea whose time has come, but now I wonder what he would think of this today. That one of the debates raging in Hamilton today still is whether we ought to have a passenger train service between Hamilton and Auckland. Now, I think if George Parr was alive today, he would say, "You're debating what? Why don't you just get on and do it?" That's what I think the practical man in George Parr would have said. And I'm with him on that, because I am the MP in Hamilton who is advocating for that service to be established against the wishes of the other local members. And I think I know where George Parr would put his vote in that instance. But look, Mr Speaker, I do want to just take this opportunity to congratulate the Hamilton City Council for pursuing this, because they have obviously seen a need to have some more flexibility in their use of the land, in particular wanting to be able to lease the dwelling that exists on that land, and I'm sure that we'll see that put to good use in the future. And without any further ado, I want to recommend the second reading of this bill to the House. Thank you.
Chris Ockenvold.